Look, I don't know if I believe in fate or signs or any of that crap. But if I did, I'd say the whole thing started with the rain. Not just any rain. This was that specific, relentless Portland drizzle that soaks you to the bone without you even noticing, the kind that turns the city's neon signs into bleeding watercolors against the wet, black streets. That it was a Tuesday, I think. Yeah, a Tuesday. The kind of weeknight where the world feels like it's winding down, everyone retreating into their own little pockets of warmth and light. I was with Chloe Martinez. We worked together at a painfully trendy digital marketing firm in the Pearl District, all exposed brick and overpriced kombucha on tap. She was a graphic designer. I handled client accounts. We weren't dating. Not really. It was one of those office things, a slow-burning flirtation built on shared eye rolls during meetings and late nights finishing projects. We'd gotten drinks a couple of times, the line between professional and personal blurring with each pint of hazy IPA. That night, we'd stayed late to finish a pitch for a new outdoor apparel brand that wanted to be disruptive and authentic, words that had long since lost all meaning. By the time we packed up, the sky had opened up. Standing under the awning of our building on NW 13th, watching the rain slick the cobblestones, it felt like we were the last two people in the city. I am not taking the bus in this, Chloe said, pulling her thin cardigan tighter around herself. It was a futile gesture. The sweater was more for style than substance, a soft, cream-colored thing that did nothing against the damp chill. I could see the goosebumps rising on her arms. My car's in the garage a few blocks over, I offered. I can give you a lift. She smiled, a quick, grateful flash of white in the gloom. You're a lifesaver, Mark, seriously. We made a run for it, hunching our shoulders against the downpour. Her laughter was sharp and bright next to me, a sound that seemed to carve a little space of warmth in the wet, cold air. I stole glances at her as we ran. Her dark hair was already plastered to her forehead and neck, little tendrils clinging to her skin. Her jeans, tight and dark wash, were soaked through from the knees down, clinging to the shape of her thighs and calves with every step. I could hear the wet slap of her boot heels on the pavement, a rhythm that felt strangely intimate. My car was a beat-up Honda Civic, about 10 years past its prime. It smelled faintly of old coffee and wet dog, a smell I was self-conscious about as Chloe slid into the passenger seat. She didn't seem to notice. She was shivering, rubbing her hands together. God, it's freezing, she murmured, her breath misting in the cold air of the car. I started the engine and the heater groaned to life, blowing stale, lukewarm air. It'll take a minute. Where to? Northwest, over by 23RD. I'll direct you. I pulled out of the garage and into the streaming streets. Portland at night in the rain is a different city. The usual vibrant weirdness is muted, washed away, leaving behind something older and more secretive. The headlights of my car cut through the silver curtains of rain, illuminating glimpses of empty sidewalks and darkened shop windows. We drove in a comfortable silence for a few blocks, the only sounds the thump of the wipers and the hiss of tires on wet asphalt. That's when I saw it. Or more accurately, smelled it. A rich, complex, and utterly specific aroma cut through the stale coffee smell of my CR. It was a smell I hadn't encountered in over 20 years, but I recognized it instantly, with a jolt that felt like a physical blow to my sternum. Roasted garlic, sizzling butter, and the distinct, pungent scent of liver. My grandmother's fried chicken livers. She used to make them for me when I was a kid, a special treat on visits to her cramped, overheated apartment in Spokane. I loved them. But the last time I ate them, I was 7. I gorged myself on a huge plateful and then an hour later, projectile vomited all over her floral print couch. A violent, traumatic bout of food poisoning that had left me in the hospital overnight, dehydrated and delirious. I hadn't been able to even look at liver since. The smell alone could make my stomach clench. And now here it was, flooding my car in the middle of a rainstorm in Portland. Do you smell that? I asked, my voice tighter than I intended. Chloe sniffed the air. Smell what? I just smell wet car. She was leaning forward, fiddling with the heater vents. The movement made her cream-colored blouse, now damp from the rain, pull taut across her back. I could see the precise outline of her bra strap through the fabric, a dark line against the pale cloth and her skin. For a bizarre, disjointed second, the intimate detail of that strap was tangled up with the nauseating smell of offal, a confusing cocktail of desire and revulsion. It's like garlic and liver, I said, feeling stupid. She laughed, a light musical sound. Maybe you drove past a fancy pet food store. She settled back into her seat, and her knee brushed against my hand on the gearshift. It was an accidental touch, fleeting, but it sent a little electric jolt up my arm. I glanced over. Her jeans were still damp, clinging to the curve of her thigh where it met the seat. I had a sudden vivid image of what it would feel like to slide my hand up that damp denim, to feel the warmth of her skin underneath. The thought was so inappropriate, so out of sync with the weird unease coiling in my gut, that I felt a hot flush of guilt. Maybe, I muttered, shaking my head to clear it, but the smell didn't fade. It intensified, becoming almost overpowering. I rolled down my window a crack, letting in a spray of cold mist. The smell persisted, as if it were coming from inside the car itself. Turn left up here, Chloe said, pointing. I'm just off Everett. I signaled and turned, the smell of my childhood trauma still haunting me, and that's when I saw the truck. It was parked in a small, otherwise empty lot between a vintage clothing store and a boarded-up storefront. A single harsh fluorescent tube light was fixed above its service window, buzzing angrily and spitting light into the rainy darkness. The truck itself was an old, battered Airstream, its silver skin streaked with grime and rain, reflecting the distorted colors of the city lights. There were no bright, cheerful logos, no quirky name painted on the side. Just a simple hand-painted sign in black letters on a small piece of wood propped in the window. Nemasanes open. There was no one around. It.no line.no customers. It was just there, a silent, gleaming anomaly in the rain-swept night, the source of that impossible, gut-churning smell. Whoa, check that out, Chloe said, leaning forward again, her interest piqued. I've never seen a food truck here before, and what kind of name is that? No sign. Nemasani, I corrected automatically, my brain clicking into gear from a long-ago mythology class. Greek Titanus, goddess of memory. Ha, fancy, she grinned at me, you're full of useless info. Let's stop. What? No. It smells weird. Come on, I'm starving. We skipped dinner, remember? And I'm curious. It looks authentic. She put a hand on my arm, her fingers were cold, but the pressure was warm, pleading. Please? My treat. It was a terrible idea. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to drive away, to get as far from that smell as possible. But there was Chloe, her dark eyes wide, her bottom lip caught slightly between her teeth. A drop of rainwater traced a path from her temple, down the smooth line of her jaw, to the hollow of her throat. I watched it disappear into the collar of her blouse. I wanted to follow it with my fingers. My resistance crumbled. Desire, simple and stupid, overrode the deeper, more primal warning. Fine, I sighed, pulling into the empty lot and parking a few spaces away from the truck. But I'm not eating any liver. The rain had softened to a fine mist. We got out and walked toward the truck. The smell was even stronger here, a physical presence in the air. It was undeniably my grandmother's fried chicken livers. But underneath it I could detect other notes. Something that smelled like burnt toast. Another scent, faint and sweet, like overcooked strawberries. It was a cacophony of smells, each one strangely familiar yet unplaceable. There was no menu board. As we approached the service window, a figure inside shifted into the light. He was tall and gaunt, his shoulders stooped as if accustomed to fitting into small spaces. He wore a clean but faded white apron over a dark shirt. His hands, which were resting on the counter, were long-fingered and pale, the skin almost translucent, showing a delicate map of blue veins. But it was his face that held my attention. It was narrow, with high, sharp cheekbones and a thin, bloodless mouth. His hair was a nondescript shade of brown, lank and brushed back from a high forehead, but his eyes, they were a pale, watery blue, and they didn't seem to blink. They fixed on me with an intensity that felt like a physical weight. He didn't speak. He just waited. Hi, Chloe said, her voice suddenly less confident under that unwavering gaze. Do you have, a menu? The man's eyes slid from me to her. The movement was slow, deliberate. He took her in, from her rain-damp hair to her wet boots. His expression didn't change, but I felt a sudden, irrational urge to step between them. The menu is subjective, he said. His voice was dry and soft, like pages turning in an old book that it didn't seem to match the rain-soaked night. It is based on recollection. On resonance. Chloe shot me a look that said, see, I told you it was authentic and weird that she loved this stuff. Okay, she said, playing along. What do you recommend? I recommend nothing. I provide. His pale eyes moved back to me. What do you remember? The question hung in the air. It felt like a trap. Remember? I asked, my own voice sounding strange. The taste, the smell. The moment it became significant. He gestured vaguely around him at the rain, the night. The weather provides the canvas. The customer provides the memory. I provide the recreation. This was getting too weird. I think we're good, I said, starting to turn. Thanks anyway. But Chloe was intrigued. No, wait. This is amazing. Like performance art. She turned back to the man. I remember this amazing lobster roll I had in Maine once. On a pier. It was drizzling then too. Can you do that? The man's thin lips twitched in what might have been a smile. It didn't reach his eyes. A common memory, but potent, the brine of the ocean, the sweetness of the meat, the regret of the cost. He turned his back to us and began to move with a quiet, efficient grace that we couldn't see what he was doing. I stood there, feeling exposed and foolish. The rain misted my face. The smell of liver was still there, but now it was mingling with the scent of seafood and butter. The real, tangible scent of a lobster roll being prepared. My stomach growled despite my unease. The man turned back and placed a cardboard boat in front of Chloe. Inside was a perfect-looking lobster roll, overflowing with fresh meat on a buttered, toasted split-top bun. Holy shit, Chloe whispered, her eyes wide. She pulled out her wallet. How much? The first one is always an introduction. No charge. His eyes found me again. And for you? I'm fine, I said quickly. You are not fine, you are hungry and you remember something. He leaned forward slightly and I caught a faint scent of something else on him. Beneath the food smells. It was like damp earth and old metal. The smell that drew you in. It is a strong one. A foundational memory. Pain and pleasure are so often intertwined. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. He couldn't know. It was impossible. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice hardening. He simply stared, those pale eyes seeming to see right through me, past the adult, past the office worker, right down to the terrified, vomiting 7-year-old boy. Chloe was already taking a bite of her lobster roll. Her eyes fluttered closed. Oh my God, Mark, it's exactly the same. It's perfect. A little smear of mayonnaise dotted the corner of her mouth. She looked blissful, utterly disarmed. The man's attention was still locked on me. It waits for you. The memory. It does not fade. It simply marinates. Without another word, he placed a second cardboard boat on the counter. This one was plain, unadorned, but the smell that wafted from it was unmistakable and vile to me, rich, garlicky, metallic fried chicken livers. He knew. He turned his back again and began to clean his station, his movements silent and final. The interaction was over. I stared at the boat of food, a wave of nausea washing over me. Without thinking, I grabbed it and walked quickly to a nearby trash can, dumping the entire thing inside. I leaned against the cold, wet metal of the can, taking deep breaths of the clean, rainy air to clear my head. Mark? Are you okay? Chloe was beside me, her hand on my back. Her touch was comforting, but my skin was crawling. That was so weird, but amazing. He just gave it to me. You should have tried yours. I couldn't, I said, straightening up. Let's just go. We hurried back to the car. I felt his eyes on my back the entire way, a cold pressure between my shoulder blades. As I started the engine and pulled away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The lot was empty, the fluorescent light was off, the truck was gone, vanished as if it had never been there at all. The whole encounter couldn't have lasted more than 5 minutes. Where'd he go? Chloe asked, twisting in her seat to look back. That was the weirdest thing. He must have packed up super fast. I didn't answer. I just drove, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The rest of the drive to her apartment was quiet. The earlier flirtatious energy was gone, replaced by a heavy, confused silence. I was freaked out, and Chloe was probably just thinking I was a moody weirdo. I pulled up to her building, a nice brownstone with glowing windows. Well, Thanks for the ride, she said, unbuckling her seatbelt. She hesitated. You sure you're okay? You look pale. I'm fine, just, long day. I forced a smile. I'll see you tomorrow. She nodded, then leaned over and gave me a quick, unexpected kiss on the cheek. Her lips were soft and cool from the rain that I caught the faint, lingering smell of butter and lobster on her breath. Feel better? She said softly, her face close to mine. For a second, I thought about pulling her closer, about losing myself in something simple and physical, something to erase the cold dread that man had planted in me. But the moment passed. She got out and disappeared into her building that I drove home, my mind racing. Mnemosyne star. The goddess of memory, that a truck that only appears in the rain, that a man who serves you your past, whether you want it or not, that it had to be a coincidence, that a bizarre, elaborate prank. Maybe someone from work knew about my weird food hang-up and set it up. But the lobster roll? How could they have recreated Chloe's specific memory? It was impossible. I got home to my small, messy apartment, poured a large whiskey, and tried to forget about it. That I almost succeeded. The next day was bright and sunny. The events of the previous night felt distant, dreamlike. At work, Chloe was her usual bubbly self, though she did give me a few curious looks. So, about that truck last night? She said during a coffee break. Let's not, I said, maybe too sharply. Weird night. Let's just forget it. She looked a little hurt but shrugged. Okay, sure. Mystery meat truck is off limits, got it? The day passed normally. But that night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No words. Just a picture. It was a photo of me and Chloe, standing at the counter of the food truck. The rain was a shimmering curtain in the fluorescent light. My face was caught in a grimace of discomfort and confusion. Chloe was looking at the truck, a smile on her face. The gaunt man was just a blur in the background, but his pale eyes were sharp and clear, staring directly at the camera. Me. Oh, who took this? I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. I blocked the number and deleted the photo, trying to dismiss it as a Photoshop joke. But the image was burned into my mind. A few days later, it rained again. A soft, evening shower. I was walking home from a convenience store, a bag of groceries in.